After that introduction, you probably got to be wondering what's this all about. Well, welcome back to another episode of Perkins Pipes. Got a little Savinelli King's Cross Featherweight estate pipe that I restored today, and we've got several things to talk about. So let's get this guy lit and let's get going. So this is an exciting episode. I've really been looking forward to doing this particular episode, in no small part because I wanted to debut this Savinelli King's Cross Featherweight. This is one of the estate pipes I had received from a friend. You can look at some of the videos I've done on restoring those. And this is my first time to give this little guy a smoke. Really would love some information about this. So if you know anything about the Savinelli King's Cross Featherweight, please drop me a comment. I'd love to know some more about the era when this was produced. Really couldn't seem to find anything online, so posted in some Savinelli groups as well, and just didn't really find anything there. Didn't get much in responses there, so I would appreciate if anybody knows anything about this. At the same time, please hit subscribe. We'd love to have you join the many folks that are subscribing to Perkins Pipes and joining in the fun and the conversation about pipes and the finer things of life. So I want to talk about Savinelli. Savinelli, a snub nose, and Mickey Spillane. So the three S's. And wow, this is talk about a featherweight. I love the black. I love the black bowl and the black stem just as a really, really great look. So many of you know that I love literature. I love stories, but I also love how stories are told. And I have been a fan of hard-boiled detective author Mickey Spillane for a very long time. And the thing I like about Spillane, I've read a lot of his novels. These are sometimes what we call pot boilers or pulp fiction, dating back to, in this particular volume, there's three novels here from 1951 and 1952. So this is the post-World War II generation. You can find out a lot of stuff about Mickey Spillane online. He started off, he actually wrote comic books. Then he got into the detective writing business. Wrote a lot of novels about his main character was Mike Hammer. And you may remember there was even a TV series based around that character in the 1980s. Stacy Keach Jr. played the lead character. There were a number of movies prior to that. Stacy Keach Mickey Spillane even played his own character, Mike Hammer, in at least one of those. And Mike Hammer is the quintessential tough guy. He's a New York private eye. He's home from the war. He's seen some of the worst sides of humanity. And now he comes back to New York. He's got his private eye ticket, private eye license. And he works the cases, and sometimes he gets involved in some things that maybe the police couldn't do because they have to follow the law more strictly than Mike does. But he's always out for bringing justice to people who maybe couldn't find it elsewhere. And what I love about Spillane in his writing is the way he characterizes Mike Hammer, the way he develops the character, the way he tells a story. I just love language. Let me give you a little taste. This is the beginning, very opening of his 1951 novel, The Big Kill. So just listen to the language on this. It was one of those nights when the sky came down and wrapped itself around the world. The rain clawed at the windows of the bar like an angry cat and tried to sneak in every time some drunk lurched in the door. The place reeked of stale beer and soggy men with enough cheap perfume thrown in to make you sick. Two drunks with a nickel between them were arguing over what to play in the jukebox until a tomato in a dress that was too tight a year ago pushed the key that started off something noisy and hot. One of the drunks wanted to dance, and she gave him a shove, so he danced with the other drunk. She saw me sitting there with my stool tipped back against the cigarette machine and change of thin on the bar, decided I could afford a wet evening for two, and walked over with her hips waving hello. "You're new around here, ain't you?" "Nah, I've been here since 6 o'clock. "Buy me a drink?" She crowded in next to me, seeing how much of herself she could plaster against my legs. No. It caught her by surprise, and she quit rubbing. "Don't gentlemen usually buy ladies a drink?" she said. She tried to lower her eyelids seductively, but one came down rather farther than the other and made her look stupid. "I'm not a gentleman, kid." "I ain't a lady either, so buy me a drink." So I bought her a drink. A jerk in a discarded army overcoat down at the end of the bar was getting the eye from the bartender because he was nursing the last drop in his glass, hating to go outside in the rain. So I bought him a drink too. So that's not my world at all. Many of you know from past videos on this channel, I teach Latin. My world is classical studies and poetry and philosophy and that kind of thing. And I think that's part of why I'm drawn to a book like this, or an author like this. Because he describes something that is utterly unfamiliar to me. And yet somehow I'm there. Somehow I'm there in the wet bar and the kind of seedy neighborhood. Tough men and tough women, and he's got chains of a fin on the bar, and I just love the language of that. And I don't know, it's just, there's an element of cool to it, which is part of the reason I'm bringing out the Savinelli King's Cross here. This is such a cool little pipe. Again, all black, just seems really, really neat. Now, I wanted to bring this together with a pistol of mine. And we've talked about guns on this channel before. So here's the thing. Mike Hammer, the character, if you know the character, you can look this up online. He carried a 1911, which was standard military sidearm, what he carried in World War II, and that's what he carries then as a private eye in New York City. So it's a semi-automatic. And I think in maybe one of the movies or something, he may have carried a pistol, although not a snub nose. Revolver, and but that was his main gun, it was the 1911. Nevertheless, there's something about that kind of language, that tough, hard-boiled detective, that makes me think of the snub-nosed revolver. And not really sure why. Maybe other movies, television shows, what have you. But I wanted one for some time. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about this. But before I do, first of all, I had checked this before I came out to do the video, but the gun is empty. Before I get into this, let me just offer a quick word of caution here. I'm going to talk about a caliber with this revolver, and some of you may absolutely freak out when you hear it. If you have serious problems with the caliber that goes with this gun, don't leave me a message. I get it. I get it. I fully understand. I've explained in videos before why I choose to have the calibers I do. I'm going to say it again. So there's no point in really trying to persuade me, hey, you got the wrong caliber for that kind of gun. I get it, okay? But for me, 9mm works just fine. It's more than enough fun for target shooting and so forth. More than enough for self-defense. And yes, I know 9mm is not standard for revolvers. In fact, there's not a whole lot of 9mm revolvers out there. And some people say, well, why bother? As I've said before, I don't want a lot of different kinds of ammo in my collection. 9mm, 22 long rifle, that's it. I want to keep my caliber simple, and in no small part, that's because of cost. So maybe I'll have that debate with folks online another time, but not getting into that right now. So I found this Taurus 905. And I had wanted it for some time. I knew it existed, a 9mm revolver. And, you know, I just thought, hey, that'd be really cool, because I wanted a snubby. I wanted a snub-nose revolver, again, because of its connection, at least in my mind, with film noir and hard-boiled detective fiction. So I wanted a snubby, and I wanted something in 9mm. Well, I knew it existed, found it one day in a gun shop, and so I went ahead and purchased it. It does have a rather long draw, so we're going to see if you can, or trigger pull, so you can see here maybe, you know, it's a little bit long there on double action. Single action, very short, nice, very crisp there. Now, because of the way 9mm is made and the way that the cylinder here works, you need a moon clip. So we can hold this up here. So the moon clip is this little, I'll pump one around out here so you can kind of see. But the moon clip is this little black metal clip, and it allows you to put your round in there, and you've got all 5 rounds. It's a 5-round gun. So what you do is you just pop that in your cylinder, and you are good to go. So I like it. Makes me think of the film noir era, the hard-boiled detective fiction, and works for me. Taurus 905. So like that guy very, very much. And part of the thing is, I think it's just, you know, I mentioned this before in other videos, we like to enter into the stories. Again, it's the reason that people will buy the sports jerseys that they do with their favorite players, kind of want to enter into that world. In some ways, it's adult dress up, if you will. And another way that I have kind of want to enter into that is through some writing. Now, I'm going to share a little piece with you. Most of my writing is nonfiction. It's academic writing, academic journal articles, books and that sort of thing. I've mentioned some of my children's fiction that I've written for my own children. And I've probably got a dozen novels. I have started novels and novel ideas sitting around. And I've got some stuff in the Mike Hammer style, in the Mickey Spillane style. Am I ever going to publish this? Actually, probably not. Probably not. I don't know. But this is one that I started some years ago, and I'll just read you a little bit of it from the beginning. And the main character he's talking about the gun that he carries. He says, "My preferred piece is a blued Smith & Wesson 36 with a 2-inch barrel. Wrap your knuckles around it, and it gives your fist enough extra punch to make a guy's face unrecognizable to his own mother. Let it do what it was made to do, and she'll be dealing with her lack of recognition in the morgue. Take the time I was at the corner diner having a steak and eggs. The waitress had just refilled my coffee with a twinkle in her eye when the conversation in the booth behind me started getting loud. Actually, it wasn't a conversation. It was a scolding, and the recipient wasn't a child. I forked a chunk of meat into my mouth and tried to ignore it, but the man's voice just kept getting louder, and when the waitress caught my eye, I knew I couldn't leave it alone. I looked up at the Coca-Cola mirror behind the counter so I wouldn't have to turn around on my stool. The man was red-faced, and so was the lady. His because he was mad, hers because she was hurt and embarrassed. I reached into my coat, pulled the pistol out of its holster, and dropped it into my pocket, and decided it was time to spin the stool. Hey, bud, why don't you leave the lady alone? Don't you think she's had enough for one meal? The man looked up with his eyes still squinted into a glare, but they took on a look of contempt as the corner of his mouth twitched into a smirk. His 5 o'clock shadow was right on time. As he stood to a wobbly stance, his breath wafted over to the counter to announce this was not the first establishment he'd stopped in on his way home from work. What's it to you, pal? This is none of your business. He jabbed a finger in the direction of my chest, and it was almost too easy to grab his hand and put his arm behind his back. The pie's pretty good here, pal. I'd hate to see your wife's tears add salt to it. Looks as if she deserves at least a little something sweet in her life. He was stronger and more nimble than I would have expected for a guy with a load on. He brought his other hand around in a haymaker, but I slipped it and came up with the rod in the palm of my hand. They say aim small, miss small. I aimed for the smallest point of his face, and I didn't miss. The revolver smashed the cartilage of his nose, and the blood began to gush. If it had been Texas oil, I'd have struck it rich. I yanked his head back and hustled him toward the door. There's no reason a busboy should do extra work mopping you up from his floor. With my foot on his backside, I helped him find the sidewalk. So, again, that's just me kind of entering into the kind of that tough world of fiction, kind of the Mickey Spillane stuff. And I just enjoy it. I just enjoy reading that, enjoy writing it. So, got some questions for you. Do you know anything about the Savinelli King's Cross Featherweight pipe? Love to know about that. Do you enjoy anything like Mickey Spillane or Dashiell Hammett or some of the other guys who wrote the hard-boiled fiction of the 30s, 40s, 50s, stuff like that? Do you like that kind of stuff? Do you like film noir? Things made into, those kinds of stories made into film. Love to hear from you. Drop a comment in the comment box. We'd love to hear. So as Malcolm Guite likes to say, I do these little things in order at last to do nothing. Or as I like to say in Latin, Parva agam ut tandem, nihil agam. Have a wonderful day.